Hi, I'm Greg the Atheist. Wanted to jump in here. Truth in the proto-geometric sense, in the ideal perfect circle sense, the ideal truth, the ideal and truth in the formal logic sense. If this, then this yields, etc., etc. These are systemic truths, and this system is within a language. The language is not a system. It is a way. It's a current. It's what you use. Now, you can make a metaphor to the language as system in order to formalize it, and you can describe the language as systemic. That's fine to make this description, but the context of truth, but well, let me ask you this. Is the context of truth a system by necessity? Do you have to have a system to find truth, or do you just need a context? And if so, if language is equivalent to context, that is to say, if this, then this. It's a description within language, such as the words. Language is the context for systems, or language is a system. These are all used within the language, meaning you're using the language to describe it. So you've created simultaneously a use and a context, and you're using language as both the use, the positing, and the context. So language is capable of doing this, just like a Mobius bottle of some sort. So, Greg, you keep mentioning systems, and systems, the idea of systems, the word systems, these have a history. And the word eternal, this seems to be on your mind. This has a history, and it is but a word in the language. Both of these words have a legacy, and in the bundling of differing, mixing legacies, the usage history, that is, one can find themselves believing that eternality is something more than a non-empirical consideration or extrapolation of an idea, such as the perfect circle. So eternal and perfect circle and capital T truth are words that fit within a language case, if you want to use Wittgensteinians trying to case the language, and that case is, well, a Platonic ideal. One of the bundling historic ideas of truth, capital T, is that it mixes without clarity with the histories of arguments that arise when people don't agree on empirical issues. For example, whether or not you left the blow dryer on back home, etc. Because there is a mixed history of capital T truth with a empirical truths, because there's a mixed history, and this mixed history has its own accepted use. This is now convoluted. This is convoluted, but the phrase, "I think that we left God in the driveway," can have a meaning within the context of a developed story. Okay, this in turn yields the antiquated theist confusion of granting knowledge and hence behavior within the framework of faith. They confuse empirical truth with evidences that are not empirical, lest the words themselves found within Bible. So that's why they continually point back to, well, the Bible says. So they're using the context there, but hence lack thereof makes the theist absurd, but not quite. The singular consideration, mental digestion of an idea within one's own solace, and meditation, have humans talking, they're talking outward, but they're doing so within themselves. And this is a language game. It's a game of solitaire. Now, this is an internal game and is isolate. It has an isolate, this internal game is isolate meaning. There is no public to verify it. Okay, but it's played as a game anyway. Now, Azrienoch might jump on this, I suspect, when he has more under his belt. But since the game is not verifiable, it would be absurd to justify it as a game at all. But let's say it's chemical movement or it's consideration, and there's not certainty, okay, that it's a game. As a matter of fact, this would lead us to Wittgenstein's The Reader, called Uncertainty, where he describes just such things. But I don't doubt that I'm an English speaker the minute I walk alone into an empty room with no English context or no other English speakers about, or no language speakers about, for that matter. Because I don't have doubt, and because my mind does what I consider to be, meaning it processes what I would consider to be English, and I think you'll verify this now that I've made it public. Well, this is a fact that makes Wittgenstein a descriptor of language, okay? Anyway, I don't want to carry on too much, but it also is what makes Witters old. So lots of language considerations have been done since his time. The solitaire game is misunderstood as relationships with a god or a godhead, which has history in itself. And people like to compare their solitaire games in groups called religion, as you know. Now, of course, there is God, as there is God language. Of course, there is progress, as we understand the word progress. You struggle to attempt to disillusion the outward speaking of one's internal solitaire game. Now, I too don't believe in an unexplainable being or a unevidenced being. I know that thrusts. I know the thrust of psychological iteration. In a class best described as knowing myself. And as far as a case of nihilism, where you might find yourself uncomforted by the descriptions that Azrienoch is unhinging, Greg, I don't believe your life responsibilities would allow you to delve into and live within the abstract and robust natures of letting all responsibilities and quote-unquote realities slide. You want your kids to stay healthy, and the nihilist engagement is something of an abandonment of know-how and make-do, as well as responsibilities. Okay, well, with that, I'll wrap up. Thanks.